of developing stories coming up shortly. We are into the press review. Looking at the press review, we're going to be looking at some of those key topics that are making headlines in the news and the press when it comes to the newspapers and key topics in regards to business. This month, if we are to look at some of the key highlights of what has been happening in the month of February, a lot has happened from the final investment decision and following up on all those stories. And on the weekend, over the weekend rather, the parish development model was also launched by the president in Chibuku. So that is Eastern Uganda. What does it entail? 17 million Ugandan shillings will be going to each parish out there, and then later on the pool will be up to 100 million Ugandan shillings for the parish development model. If at all, the government will clearly look at it and try to evaluate how important is the parish development model. Bigger story that ended the month of February. A lot has been transpiring in last month, and we've been actually driving your business, taking you through a lot of activations from the world of business. When you look at how many things have actually been happening, well, you can sit back and try to throw back a little bit. The same month saw the MVP Pamba get back on board on Lake Victoria. So you can see in terms of businesses, we are looking at a year of economic recovery. Well, when we're looking at that, you can still set your eyes and see that with a number of sectors getting back to the usual normal, every other business will definitely get back to the normal. Borders back to normal were also back and given a go through by President Museveni to start operating full-time, full course. They were the only remaining sector to reopen. So the month of February, in a simple sum up, has actually seen a number of business activations taking place and has actually boosted a number of sectors in that particular regard. So we shall wait and address the month of March with more vigor, with more aggression, and with more hope that business will be making headlines, that business stories will continuously grow, that the local community, that we shall continue to impact, because ours is to drive the business. And for SMB, Smart Means Business is for you to be the first to know. And you can only get that.
And of course, wouldn't you? We say that.
Hey, and of course,
wouldn't you want that for your morning?
So if you want your morning kickstart, it's the month of March will definitely be giving you all of the latest updates.
And speaking about updates, people from the rural areas around the country, those who have at least been a part or beneficiaries on the rural electrification policy performing, a report came out that actually people are now wired very well. Some places were lacking, some equipment. But for this particular month, like you were saying, big highlighters that has happened around the country, at least now every region is covered out of the 97,000 annual planned connections about rural electrification agency. About 3,683 were released during the period ended by June 2021. So you will realize by this month or in this month, at least the balance out of the 3,683 were at least kweyunga. How would they say? Kuyunga. Baragata ward. They were also connected again, and that one is coming up with a great hope. Share with me your experience in Buikwe at your grandmother's place.
Well, electrification. Well, I think ours came as a blessing to the fact that we are next to, let's say, Lugazi sugar works, because in there are a lot of plantations in Buikwe around, and it being a fact that people have to keep an eye on their plantations and on what is actually happening even in the night. Electricity did come early, quite early, even before we were initially Buikwe was initially reinstated. There were a number of households there who had some electricity. Remember, as you're moving from Jinja, it becomes easier for those people to get connected.
So it was a great one. You got engaged earlier on.
We got engaged. I think the only households, most of the well-established households back then, had power in one way. Although in the last 10 years, electrification in those ends of Uganda have been actually easier. When you look at the most parts of central Uganda, even in the rural setting, most of them are actually getting this electricity, are getting connectivities happening, even in maybe some areas close to central, let's say eastern Uganda, and then some that are around western Uganda that are close to central, because here at least those have been connected. So I think the bigger challenge now remains with those up country, back in the rural setting, deep in the rural areas. That is why some people have actually been pushing for solar energy until they will wait for rural electrification process.
But at least government has now tried to cover up the gaps that have been at least remaining. So I can say the 70% they were on has been pushed to a 90%. So at least a number of them around that particular entity have been covered. But the rural electrification has suffered a lot of underperformance. If you're to notice, during the year, the financial year ended as of June 2001, where government, yes, they were threatening government's agendas to growing or to making sure people have got electricity, that this was not coming to its performance. But at least now we have seen a change. However, there has been challenges. For example, in my village and in my home, whereby these connections are tagged to be poor connections, I can't really say. Because to me, an effective connection has got to be very effective, very functional 24 hours or 24/7 without any blackouts. Within a very short period of time, 1 week, you've got a blackout, you've got a transformer heat up, you've got a transformer getting spoiled, replacing there and then. So to me, I can call that as a poor connection, really. And you will realize also that, again, at home, we have been waiting for 5 months. 5 months, they put, for example, my mother on wait for 5 months to bring, how are they called? The ones they put on the wall. The ones they put on the wall. Not transformer. Transformer is not Yaka.
Meter box.
Yes, thank you. Breakfast on me again. So the meter box has taken almost 5 months after the connection. So they connect to you, you've got power in the house, but you don't have a meter box. So the ones they put earlier, after like a week of connection, it got burned. It got, a shock.
These are scenarios from your area?
Yes, I'm trying to report now from just my village. And you can imagine the other villages, it was even worse. So at some areas, they got really poor connection. There was a poor connection. It could be, I cannot say it's a geographical, again, problem or challenge. This is a poor connection that has to come along from maybe the personnel they were using, or even the human resource at that moment, maybe were amateurs at some point, because I mean the connections are always going off, coin cuttings, putting in extra costs. So at some point it is coming back to the user or consumer, because you have to put in extra costs to buy this all the time, and it gets shocked, or you get a shock. So I can say all this is among the criticisms that government faced during earlier on that time. But the dismal performance now, according to the Auditor General John Mwanga, is likely to fail the intended objects of the electrification connection policy that was being highlighted around there. But what is happening now is that increasing electricity access to 50% is actually possible across the country, because during the period between June 2020 and June 2021, according to the report by Auditor General, you will realize that most of the connections were only being managed at a 3.7% on towards the target connection. So we were still addressing on the connection issues like I was highlighting earlier. But there is now an adoption process or embracement. What do you have to say about the adoption process of electricity? For example, it's a new thing. Government announces on radios, we're going to put Walwomuti. You have seen homes. Walwomuti, they have never even tapped into that opportunity. And what do you have to say about embracing government programs, for example, rural electrification?
Well, first and foremost,
give us your highlights.
Now let's also focus on the charges here. I've been thinking about pushing for electricity in rural areas. But has government also thought about the charges of this electricity onto these families? Because I do believe some of these households may not be having a lot of input, would I say, will not be having a lot of money at the end of the month to actually pay for some of this electricity. And before we even look at how we are going to be pushing for it, yes, we are pushing it, and we want these families to get connected to the first step of digitalization, because I believe if you don't have that smartphone with you, but when you can access some electricity, then you have some step towards the generation that we're actually heading into, or that we are already into. But, so getting back to the issue of the charges, now like my people in Buikwe, some of the key challenges they are facing is to pay off these bills. Remember, some of them are not connected to Yaka. Some of them are still back to the meter boxes.
Most of the rural electrification.
So now in most cases, they bring you that chipapla, the invoice at the end of the month. So that is why you would find out some households will actually spend like 3 months without having electricity, even when they are connected.
Yes,
because and when you ask them, how come you're connected but you don't have power? Why? So I think these charges are quite difficult for some people in the rural areas. And you'll find out that meter box or no bulb. So I think government should also address that issue of the charges.
But it's coming with a responsibility in a home now, because I mean, if I've given you something, I've given you entandikwa really, it shouldn't come back to me at some point. I've given you a hole to dig. At least you should find this the stick they put it down.
No, in most cases when they give you, then that means you have to look for. In most cases, someone will give you.
When they give you a home, because government encombs it.
By the
Yes, the kapiata hole. Have you ever seen it giving you also this stick they insert in?
No,
it doesn't.
Like the one that you use for handling.
Yes, the timber, the hand of the hoe, hoe handle.
No, sometimes they do.
Sometimes, okay, just like you said, sometimes. So there is a scenario
whereby you find the percentage of those who receive with it are there, but then there are others that because so, they know they can get.
Like out of 100, how many are going to get that supportive stick or the handle? A few people will get.
In villages,
but then what will you do?
Everyone has a different support handle. I've just realized. So when you take me back to that, you ask yourself, was this boat with this kind of handle? You find a handle that is either way crooked, one may be short. So some people actually shape their handles according to the way he wants to dig. So when you actually mention of that, I believe maybe government wants to only gives them the most important part. It's
the most important. They have given you, they have wired for you, you have got electricity, and not only, by the way, you shouldn't quote us wrong, government does not wire for everyone. They provide electricity around the area, and if there is meters yard away from that particular pole, for example, if not pole but a pole, electricity pole, wanokukuba masanyaze wegaita. So if you're just next like 10 yards away from that or 20, you're bound to be connected for free. That cost is on government. But if, for example, government doesn't incur that cost. It's you to make sure you tap.
You get that electricity.
Yes, you tap.
You buy the pole.
You may not buy the pole. The poles are already there, so you can just incur only one cost on the pole.
I heard of stories where
to extend to your household,
because they're in the village setting. If I told you living so deep inside, and you want to get so you have to buy that pole to extend the lines to you. So that is why I'm saying in most of the times, if I told you have to maintain electricity in your villages, you need to be a well-off person.
But again, it comes back with how can I say, community engagement. Sonko, you're my neighbor. Even regardless being, we're not neighbors, I'm giving an example. If you are my village neighbor, and regardless of us being, you know, very scattered around, because you know village setting, someone is far and all this is their farm, they tend to be at a distance. So here's the thing, at least mwekole mulimu as abantu in a village setting, you will realize if 2 people, 3 families come together, you can be able to put up 6 poles. Can you imagine that? And true. I am sure the 6 poles, if they are going to conjoin and pass somewhere, they will be, you can connect a number. So it again goes back to how we are ready to change our lives as people, and this will also be reflected on the parish development model that is coming.
I wanted us to actually mention something about that.
How are you going to make sure you help your neighbor? Or is it about, what is it even about? Is it about your success as a family, the parish development model, or as a village setting, or as a homestead?
Well, if you're tactical enough, like we were told last week, I believe it may benefit your family, or even your, if at all everyone in the parish is tactical enough, I believe it can benefit almost all of you in the parish. But then in most cases you realize some of these funds don't tend to benefit only those that are well prepared. Because in most cases we find out that even when people are actually facing challenges with money related issues, there is always a group that is always more prepared to actually go away from the poverty part of it. So with the parish development model, I believe, like we were told, the tactical part of it is important for one to actually benefit from this money.
And you're right. And with also reflection of a village setting, because it being a day like this on a Monday, we follow the themes of, you know, handling socio-economical and also political issues that are rising from the community and trying to help ourselves better for the economical sustainability around us. The circles back to the villages, because now we're looking at people in the village, how you can tap into great opportunities. Yes, you may not be, you may be in a village right now, you may not be watching us, but I know you have got a sister who is there. Your mother is in that village. You have your sisters, you have your aunties in that village. How are you going to use what you have or what you're able to see now to help them? Number one, you could always highlight for them as a family, even how many, because I believe in villages, they extend, many of the families are extended. How, to what extent are you collaborating with your aunties? Are you collaborating with your sisters? Because sometimes development starts within our locality, in case you do not know. Because if we start fighting it at each other, it's going to limit the pace at which Sonko Rita is going to come out and help your child to access education. If you're fighting me every day that comes, it's going to chigenda kunzibuwalida to give you something at the end of the month or advice. So at some point, how are you making sure you integrate your family, you as family members? Because it's a program of, it's a government program, but again, it's going to target households. And in a household, mugenda bera mwaba family. If families, you're not coordinated here, you're going to lose it, I tell you. Even when you have a representative at the committee.
If I told someone, more so if I told you have an individual who is greedy.
Greedy?
In your family. You see, we have a challenge when it goes back to our parishes, in most cases. Even when you have a representative of the committee, how does he tolerate the issue that, well, now we've received this amount of money, how can we use it? Let's say your family, under the parish setting, you've received 300,000. How are you going to use it effectively to help your family? Because you'll find there are some individuals that will get this money and instead invest it in some other things. And then he comes boldly at home and tells you, you know what? We've missed out on this opportunity. You know, this government.
Now there is, that's when you have now to come together as a family. You know, Sonko is a drunkard. Sorry to say, you don't even drink. He doesn't even drink. He doesn't test alcohol. Okay, Rita is a drunkard, for example. She drinks a lot. He drinks a lot, and he loses it when he drinks. Or Sonko, when he's
gets the money, he puts it into buying
other
alcohol.
Things. He doesn't. In a family, I tell you, family family members, Sonko, you know your family. You know who is selfish. You know,
who can do something.
you know someone who can reach a hand. So always make better choices. You know someone who is going to spoil everything, because every family has got such kind of characters. So can you always try to make sure the character that is going to help you develop can tap into such opportunities that will come with, you know, a token at the end of the day. That's
And
what I
also
have to
speaking
say
of
about
the parish
development.
development model. There is a very big issue that I realized that very few Ugandans do know about this particular amount of money. So it takes us back to the issue that who are we addressing? Which people was it addressing? Because when you get to interact with some of the Ugandans and you ask them, so do you know government launched the parish development model and your parish is set to receive 17 million? Even when you call back home, in the villages they will tell you, so you ask yourself, do the communities do this sensitization? Has government done enough sensitization to make sure that people understand?
It's a challenge if government did not involve, because I believe, I don't know if your village has got village teams,
almost.
VHTs.
But they even have,
if they're
you know,
not
most
being
villages
engaged,
have voices of the village. It's like voice of Buikwe. They have to pass
yeah.
through all this information, you get it? So there's like voice of Naja. So that is just
so
a
if
local
the voice of Nyamango is not, you know, functional, if government has not, you know, given in a hand to make sure they facilitate VHTs. My mother is a VHT, by the way, in my village. But sometimes there are government eradication programs that she goes to, and you'll hear they have given them some money. And at some point, because there are other people who are village healthy teams or village teams, and they will tell you, you know what, today I'm not going. And the excuse they'll give is that, last time they promised air. Like they didn't get what they went for. So this is where they have to attend at least for over 10 hours, because they go, for example, at 10 and someone is going to come back home around maybe in the evening around 4. And if they've been given lunch, that's okay, and a bottle of water. But how about at the end of the day, what are they taking home? They're putting in energy to make sure maybe they are giving advice, they're trying to relocate who is pregnant, they're trying to provide government with information. But how are you as government catering for them? You will realize if you try to discriminate them, if you underlook them in such programs, that means especially women-oriented enterprises or women-oriented activities towards this parish development, because I mean at the end of the day, who's going to go to the garden and dig? Who is going to go to put hands on to make sure everything works out? A lot of men do not have time for a hoe, really, and do not have time to plan that what are we going to eat at the end of the day. So in case that doesn't work out, government to come out and say, hey, this is a hand, at least at least in after a month you're going to be having 100,000 for your pay, to make sure you mobilize people, to make sure you represent these people well, and there is the equipment, there is how everything is going to be served and surviving. The implementation program may go on very well. If only local authorities, that includes the LOC1, that includes the, not even Muruka, the LOC1 and the village health, the village teams are going to be, you know, integrated here. That is the only way we are going to engage into people. Because people at the district, so your uncle at the district does not know, my mother does not know, my auntie who needs that model does not know. So you won't be implementing from top, but from the grassroots.
Well, and it being the fact that these Ugandans have less information, or those who have the information are still biased regarding the issues of how government has been sending all these funds, and their leaders have been taking these funds, have been misusing them either way, or have been stealing, if I'm to use it in a better way, because some of them do believe abakozi ba government sente bazibawa bazitwala ne bazidiza. So for all the leaders out there, if we have to look at the implementation part of it, try as much as you can to help these people understand of what importance these funds are. And the good thing is that when you look at where the parish development model was launched, it shows you that they looked at a rural setting in Chubuku. So when you go into a rural setting, try to address the issue and let the locals understand what is there. And even during the proceedings, the president did have, like he normally has, his translators that take people to understand the importance of these funds. So I do hope for the residents of Chibuku, who are the first to receive the 17 million, can easily get to make good use of it. So we do hope that you get these funds and you can utilize them. It is of your importance and of your genuine, let's say, growth and development. This year is for you to see that you develop and grow bigger than you were last year or the last 2 years when COVID was here. A lot of things did happen. A number of households were affected, but with the parish development model, it will be targeting from your parishes. It will be targeting from the grassroots, looking at how you people can develop, looking at how your agriculture can develop, looking at how you can uproot your households. And with that, we are going to take a break. But when we do return, we shall definitely dive into more of the business reports and also sports business to take you through what has been happening across the weekend. And there is also something to do with Vladimir Putin being suspended from judo. Lots and lots of that is coming up after the break.